There wasn't anything unusual about the stretch of road outside Gahanna, Ohio. It was early, just after 6:15 a.m., and the chill in the air hadn't quite burned off. Sergeant Carmen Wade had driven that road 100 times before. She knew every bend, every pothole, every crooked road sign leading out of her neighborhood and toward the highway. Her 2014 dark green Toyota RAV4 was running low on gas. She hadn't eaten yet, so she figured she'd grab something small at the station before continuing on to the reserve base in Whitehall. Drill weekend. She didn't love it. Didn't hate it either. It was part of her life, her rhythm. Before we continue, we'd really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us get closer to 1,000 subscribers. It means the world to us. Thank you so much. She pulled into the Sinclair station on Morse Road, tucked just behind a strip of shuttered businesses and a Dollar General. Not exactly the nicest part of town, but far from the worst. Carmen was in uniform, fatigues pressed, boots tied tight. She wore her name patch and rank proudly across her chest. Her duffel bag sat upright in the back seat, packed the night before with her field gear. She glanced at it as she stepped out, feeling that same tug of discipline she'd carried for the past 12 years. Army Reserve wasn't her whole life, but it kept her grounded. As she slid her card into the pump and selected regular unleaded, her phone buzzed. A message from her mom, just checking in. Carmen smiled. Always before a drill, she muttered. She typed a quick reply, then opened a protein bar and took a bite while the gas filled her tank. She didn't notice the white Chevy Tahoe pulling 2 pumps over. Not right away. Inside the SUV sat 2 uniformed police officers from a nearby suburb. One younger, tall with buzzed hair. The other older, heavier and quiet behind mirrored sunglasses. The younger one pointed toward Carmen, said something that made the older man shrug. Carmen was putting the nozzle back when the first voice called out, "Hey, excuse me, Mom." She turned. "Yes, officer. You mind stepping away from the vehicle?" She blinked, confused. Is something wrong?" "Can you do it now?" he snapped. There was something in his tone, not just authority, but suspicion. It made her stomach tighten, but she stepped back, hands visible. The older officer got out and stood off to the side, saying nothing. The younger one approached directly. "You got ID on you?" "Of course," Carmen said, reaching slowly into her uniform pocket. "I'm headed to base. I'm Army Reserve." She held out her military ID with one hand and her driver's license with the other. The officer glanced at them, barely looking. "This uniform isn't a costume," she added quietly, not moving. "Who said it was?" he replied. "Got a call about someone loitering and acting suspicious. Just doing our job." Carmen didn't say anything. Her eyes moved to the older officer. He still hadn't spoken, just watched. "You sure this ID's legit?" the young one asked. "Excuse me. You heard me." She exhaled slowly. "You think I'm impersonating military?" He didn't answer. Instead, he took a step closer. "Turn around." Carmen blinked. "Are you detaining me?" He raised his voice. "Ma'am, I'm giving you a lawful command. Turn around, hands behind your back." She looked at the older officer again, hoping for reason, but he nodded once. Not sympathetically, just to signal compliance. Her fists clenched before she turned. "This is a mistake," she said. "And it's going to cost you." Her hands were yanked back. Cuffs clicked tight, too tight. She winced, but didn't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. Someone across the lot yelled, "Hey, what's she even doing?" "That's a soldier." The younger officer turned his head, annoyed. "Back off." But Carmen wasn't thinking about the growing crowd or the eyes on her uniform. Her mind was already on the call she was about to make from the cruiser. The back seat of the police cruiser smelled like old vinyl and sweat. The door slammed shut behind her with a cold finality. Carmen sat upright, wrists still cuffed behind her. Her breathing was steady, but her jaw was clenched. Her name tag was half twisted from the way they'd grabbed her. She stared out the window, watching as the younger officer swaggered around her vehicle like he'd just cracked a case. The older one stayed near the cruiser, arms crossed, eyes scanning the gas station like he was bored of the whole thing. Carmen spoke loud enough to be heard through the small opening in the plexiglass barrier. "I want to call my commanding officer." The younger one didn't turn. "You'll get your phone call at the station." "That's not how this works," she replied firmly. "This uniform gives me the right to contact my base immediately when detained." He finally turned. You're being held under suspicion of impersonating military personnel. That's a federal offense. Sit tight. Carmen didn't flinch. I'm not going to sit here while you pretend this isn't racial profiling. He smirked. No one said anything about race, lady. We got a call, we responded. She leaned forward. You looked at my ID. You saw my license. My tags are in the window. You ignored all of that and cuffed me anyway. Why? He stared for a moment, as if trying to decide whether to answer. Then he turned and walked away. Outside, a small crowd had gathered near the sidewalk. Two young men were filming with their phones. A woman in scrubs yelled something about knowing her rights. The air buzzed with tension, the kind you could feel in your teeth. The older officer got into the driver's seat and glanced at her in the mirror. You should have just kept quiet. Carmen looked him dead in the eye. You should have just done your job right. She turned slightly. As much as the cuffs allowed. Can I use my phone or not? He hesitated, then muttered, make it quick. He reached around and dropped the phone into her lap. Without unlocking the cuffs, she maneuvered it awkwardly, twisting to tap the screen with the side of her thumb. 2 quick swipes, 1 number. It rang twice. Carmen's voice was sharp, alert. Anthony, I'm cuffed in the back of a police car in Gahana. They say I'm impersonating military. I showed ID. They don't care. There was a pause. Who's the arresting officer? I don't know yet. No badge names shown. 2 of them. White SUV. Sinclair Station off Morse. I'm 5 minutes out. I'm calling command. Keep the line open. The call went quiet, but she didn't hang up. The older officer looked at her through the mirror again. Who was that? Your lawyer? She didn't answer. Outside, the younger cop walked back toward the cruiser, now visibly agitated. We're getting heat out here, he muttered to his partner. Somebody's already posted video. It's hitting Facebook. I said 5 minutes. Anthony's voice came again. You hear me? I hear you. The younger cop leaned into the window. Who's Anthony? Your boyfriend? Carmen raised an eyebrow. Try Colonel Anthony Kane, 3rd Battalion Logistics. You're about to learn his name real well. That hit differently. The cop's jaw moved slightly. He stepped back. The mood was shifting. More bystanders were filming. A car honked. The woman in scrubs shouted again. Louder this time, she's military idiots. But the officers didn't move fast. Carmen could feel the seconds ticking down. Either this ended quietly or very, very publicly. Colonel Anthony Graves hadn't slept much. He was halfway through his first black coffee when his goddaughter's call came in. Her voice wasn't panic, just controlled. Controlled anger. Controlled humiliation. Anthony wasn't just any officer, he got things done. Born in Dayton, sharpened by combat and bureaucracy, he'd seen the system both function and fail. But it wasn't going to fail Carmen. He tossed the coffee, grabbed his keys, and dialed as he pulled out. Dispatch, this is Colonel Anthony Graves. I need the location of officers Knox and Kane. I believe they've detained a service member at a Sinclair Station off Morse Road. The line hesitated. Sir, we don't typically. I'm not asking for typical. I'm requesting confirmation of an incident involving one of my logistics officers, in uniform, accused of impersonating military. Pause. We'll check and update you, sir. Good, you've got 2 minutes. Next, call his friend on the city council. Pull traffic cam footage. Is there a cruiser at that Sinclair? I need eyes now. Back inside the cruiser, Carmen sat still. The line with Anthony was still open. She wanted them to hear everything. Still with me? Anthony asked. I'm here, she said. Crowd's growing. People filming. Stay put. Don't speak. Let them dig their own hole. Too late for that, she muttered. The younger officer paced, then grabbed his radio. Dispatch, we've got a situation. Civilian interference, requesting backup. Carmen chuckled. Backup? For one cuffed woman. The cop snapped, watch your mouth. Or what? You'll tighten the cuffs harder. The older officer added, you're not helping yourself. I'm not here to help you feel better about what you did, she replied. Anthony's voice cut in stronger now. They're scrambling. I've got 3 calls out, including to public affairs. Videos are coming in, it's already spreading. And it was. A 90-second video had just gone up on Twitter. Carmen, in uniform, calmly explaining herself as the officer barked orders. The contrast was striking. Local journalists were already retweeting it. Across Columbus, inside a newsroom, a young editor named Reina Cortez spotted it while scanning feeds. She hit play, frowned, then grabbed the phone. "Yeah, we've got something near Morse Road. Military woman cuffed in uniform. Want me to follow this?" At the gas station, more cars had arrived, but no one was leaving. A woman in a red hoodie yelled, "I recorded everything." She said she was military. The younger officer looked at his partner. "We messed up. Should have checked her ID." Carmen turned. "You still think I wear this uniform for fun?" The silence was heavier than the cuffs. A police sub arrived. A black lieutenant got out, walked straight to the cruiser, and tapped the window. "Sergeant Wade," she looked up. "Yes," he said, "Colonel Graves contacted me. I saw the footage. We're fixing this." He opened the door and uncuffed her. "I apologize." Carmen stood, stared at the two officers, and said, "You're not sorry. You're just caught." By the time Colonel Graves arrived, the scene was clear. Carmen stood by her car, arms crossed, jaw tight. They exchanged a silent look. "You okay?" he asked. "Just mad," she replied. "Good. Use it." Across the street, reporters interviewed witnesses. "They cuffed her in uniform," said the woman in scrubs. "She showed ID. They ignored it." The video had gone viral, over 180,000 views in hours. Comments poured in. "How does this happen? Fire them both." Anthony had already sent the footage to police oversight, the base commander, and city officials. Bodycam clips showed Carmen calm, respectful, and cooperative. Off camera, an officer said, "Think she's a fake vet?" The other replied, "Real or not, she had an attitude." That afternoon, the officers were placed on leave. PR wanted a statement. The chief said no. "Let it cool." "It won't," someone answered. On base, soldiers were furious. 15 years in uniform, one said, never got cuffed. Wonder why. Carmen stayed silent. No interviews. No headlines. She wanted justice, not attention. That night, Anthony called. Still no statement. She said, "The footage says enough." He warned, "They'll spin it." She replied, "Let them try." The next day, more footage surfaced. A retired Air Force major said, if she were white, they wouldn't have cuffed her. The silence from the department only made it worse. But decisions were already being made, and they wouldn't be quiet. By Friday, the video was everywhere: TV, social media, news sites. "Reservist cuffed in uniform" became the headline. The Sinclair station turned into a media spot. People debated. She showed ID. They should have let her go. You don't cuff someone in uniform. Carmen stayed home, silent. Messages poured in. Some hateful, many supportive. A soldier wrote, "You stood up while sitting still." It stuck with her. The mayor gave a cold statement. But later, a review confirmed both officers ignored protocol, especially regarding military ID. Protesters gathered. Signs read, "Justice for Sergeant Wade." At school, a teacher played the clip. "Why does this keep happening?" she asked. The department acted fast. Knox and Kane were suspended, facing termination, one argued. The other signed without a word. News broke. Some cheered. A few defended them. But most saw it for what it was: a wrong finally made right. That night, veterans lit candles outside the base. No shouting, just silence. They stood in silence. One man's sign read, "We know what she stood for." "Do you?" Carmen stayed quiet. She took one day off, kept her routine. Her boots were clean, uniform hung neat, but everything felt heavier. A letter slid under her door. Apology. Officers fired. No signature, just words. She skipped the council meeting. Went to the VFW instead. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "But silence isn't the answer." They clapped. She stopped them. "I want change, not applause." New rules followed: ID checks, bias training, a liaison. Officer Reeves messaged her, "I'll do better." Anthony called it progress. But in public, whispers followed. Some admired her, some judged. She stayed steady. One day, the nurse from the gas station stopped her. "You weren't alone," she said. Carmen smiled. "Thank you. That matters." Anthony visited. They sat on the porch. "You did good," he said. "I didn't do anything special." "Exactly," he replied. She watched the quiet street. Justice had come, but the weight remained. Because this was never just about her. It never is. The firings faded, the headlines passed, but the conversation stayed in kitchens, in training rooms, in quiet shifts of awareness. For Carmen, life resumed, drills, errands, work. But everything felt different. People looked at her differently, some with respect, some with discomfort. She didn't sort them. What mattered came in a plain envelope 2 weeks later. Inside was a letter from Darla De Soto, 19, newly enlisted. "I didn't think I could do this," she wrote. "But I saw you calm, strong, and I knew I could too. Thank you." Carmen held the letter for a long time. She never meant to inspire. She just refused to be erased. Maybe real strength is standing still when someone tries to shrink you with one gesture. Her story wasn't loud. It was a voice breaking silence at the right moment. One phone call changed everything. Colonel Graves said it best: "You didn't yell. You let them expose themselves. That's why they lost." She nodded. "They'll try again somewhere else." "Yeah," he said, "but now people are watching." The gas station added cameras. Officers got retraining. Community liaisons met monthly with military reps. Carmen stayed quiet but not silent. She wrote back to young recruits, spoke at small events, answered every message. She also ran again, took road trips, made gumbo for kids. Because surviving isn't staying stuck. It's healing, growing, moving forward. And sometimes you hold the system accountable not by shouting, but by refusing to disappear. To every "that's just how it is," her story answers, it doesn't have to be. Not if you stand firm. Not if you remember who you are with or without the uniform. 1 week later, the news cycle moved on, but some things lingered. At the base, Carmen noticed the small changes: longer pauses in greetings, quiet nods that meant more than words. One young soldier asked her, "Mom, does it ever get easier?" She didn't lie. "No," she said, "but you get stronger." In the mailroom, someone had taped a printed photo of her in uniform next to a sign. Respect isn't given. It's remembered. No one admitted who put it there. No one had to. At home, the phone was quieter. No interviews, no questions. Just a single text from her mom: "Proud of you. Always have been." That one made her stop and sit down. Some nights she still replayed it all. The cuffs, the silence, the stare. But now, she focused on something else. The voice on the other end of the call. The one that reminded her you're not alone. And for the first time in a while, that felt enough. 1 month later, the headlines were gone, but the echo remained. At a leadership briefing, her story came up not by name, but in the way an instructor paused before saying, "This is why we pay attention." No one looked at her, but everyone knew. Carmen had stopped correcting people who called her brave. It wasn't about courage, it was about refusing to shrink. She still wore the same uniform, but now it felt heavier in a different way. It carried eyes, expectations, hope. She got an email from Darla, the young woman who had written her. "First week of basic is done. Still scared. But I remember how calm you were. I'm trying to be like that." Carmen smiled. She wrote back just one line: "You already are." Some days still felt hard, but she had learned that healing isn't loud. Sometimes it's a quiet drive to drill. A cup of coffee alone. A soft thank you from someone who needed your strength to find their own. And maybe that was enough for now. 3 months later. By now, most people had moved on. But for Carmen, the weight hadn't vanished, it had just settled. She carried it differently. Not as a burden, but as a reminder. At a recruiting event, she stood at the back while others spoke. A teenage girl approached her quietly. "Are you her?" Carmen didn't answer right away. Then she smiled. "I'm me." The girl nodded. "That's enough." Off. Her name had been left off a local article about police reform. She didn't mind. Change wasn't about credit. It was about impact. A new officer she passed in the hallway stopped and saluted her. Awkward, unsure, but genuine. Later that night, Anthony sent her a photo, a protest sign from another city. "We remember Sergeant Wade." Under it, someone had written in marker, "Not again." She didn't reply. Just saved the photo. Some victories weren't loud. Some legacies weren't chosen. But 3 months later, the system still felt her presence, and that was enough. Note: this story is entirely fictional and created for the purpose of raising awareness. It highlights issues of responsibility, justice, and the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity. We firmly oppose violence, prejudice, and injustice in all forms. Viewer discretion is advised.